This episode of the GC Sunscast is brought to you by our Patreon donors: Old Soul, Jack's Dad, Paul Vosty, Tom Kim, Chris Moore and James Wood. We'd like to thank you for our support, and if you'd like to head over to patreon.com/GC Sunscast and donate, we are very thankful for any contributions. If you can't afford it, that's fine. Head on over to Facebook, YouTube and now Twitter at GC Sunscast. Click like, subscribe, all that jazz, to follow us, support us, and let friends and family know we exist. Anyway, it's time to get on with the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the GC Sunscast. I'm your host Shane, and joining me, as he does each and every week, is Tom. Tom, we've had a poor performance over the weekend, not just in AFL level, but every single level. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I've actually forgotten all about it because I watched the Game of Thrones last night and it was fantastic. And it was one of those episodes where you cheer like you're at the
footy
when you go, oh no, or yeah.
Oh, don't go into Game of Thrones. I haven't watched anything of Game of Thrones. I've
just got it out of the system, and haven't thought about footy until this afternoon when I was preparing to have a chat with you tonight. So
yeah, I've had a similar situation, a similar weekend. I went and saw Avengers Endgame late last week, and I'm still reeling from that. There are so many questions left unanswered, so many things that have happened, and yeah, it's been a pretty crazy weekend, and football's been one of the last things on my mind. But we did both go to the AFL game, and we both walked away hanging our heads in shame, feeling a bit depressed, and both at different times of the game as well. I just couldn't handle it any longer, and I think I left it around halfway through that last quarter. It wasn't pretty footy. But before we get into that, let's start off the show with some news. So we've had a couple of signings to our AFLW team today. So a bit of news that we haven't had for a while for the AFL Women's. We have Jordan Hickey signing up with the Suns as a tall forward. She's fairly young of age and played for Melbourne last year. Previously, she was part of the Northern Territory Thunder team. So a bit of Northern Territory representation. We also have Sally Riley from the Crows, and not just another player. She's an inside mid, but she's also the vice captain of the Crows and has been since the inception of the club. So another one there from the Northern Territory, it looks like. We're building quite a stable of experienced women with good leadership credentials.
Yeah, we are. And look, the Crows, technically they're half Adelaide and half Northern Territory, which is sort of when you think about it, it's actually quite remarkable that they've had half their players from each place, and they've often just met up on game day to play, which I think for some of the Northern Territory-based players, they wanted to come live in the Gold Coast. So great destination club again, which is just great PR for us. And yeah, 16 girls on the list, 16 women on the list. We've had girls up until now. And I can wait because we've got plenty of footy left in the AFL men's for the rest of this season. But come the new year, I'm going to be really anticipating that first game. Probably head along to a couple of games, I reckon, because they're free. I'll take my little girl, and it's usually a really nice family atmosphere.
Yeah, it would be a nice way to spend a lazy, sunny Saturday or Sunday afternoon whenever they're playing them.
Probably Friday night, I reckon, because that's what a lot of the other towns do, or they do it in a...
I've never had a Friday night game at Metricon, so...
Well, this will be it, and they fill up the stadiums. We know from the grand final with Adelaide, so yeah, it's good to see this happening. Of course, the draft's going to come up, but we'll be right across that when it does happen.
All right. Well, the other pieces of news that have come across the desk tonight is the injury news. We have poor Brad Shear suffering a fractured hand. At this stage, we don't know how long he's going to be out for, but he's definitely going to miss a good chunk of the season.
Yeah, he was playing really well too. It's a bummer.
We have Crossley, who's done a hamstring injury in the first minutes, it looked like, of the Neefle game. We've heard conflicting reports, but it looks like he'll be out from anywhere from 2 weeks to 5 weeks. And,
you can't really trust the injury reports. They just, if they don't know, they guess. So AFL, I think, guess a lot because of the type of injury. They'll just say 4 to 5 weeks because that's what a hammy is. But Crossley's had this hammy issue for quite a while. So it wasn't. He was lumbering around, and then he did his hammy, and maybe he did something in the warm up or something. I don't know, but he was in. He had like one disposal, and off he went.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer.
In some better news on the injury front, we've got Riscatelli, Lemons, and Powell fit to play this weekend. As to what level of AFL they'll be playing, we don't know. And we also have a couple of stars on the way back, listed as only a week away. Number 3 draft pick, Isaac Rankin. Lockie Weller's also 1 week. So hopefully we'll start to see some players back in the Suns side and also boost the twos. And the other player with 1 week is Corey Ellis, the recruit we got from Richmond. Yeah,
he'll really add some starch to the Neefle team, and they need it with Shear out. So, look, they are just a backup team for us, and they're there to keep people fit and in form and ready to come into the senior side as needed. But, we can't. We want to see them have a bit of success, because if the first team can't make finals or whatever, then you kind of want players at that second level to be winning and be playing for each other and building the club from the bottom up. They have said that Rankin will go back through the Neefle. He could even play this week. I mean, this is the thing with injuries, right? They're not going to advertise to the world how bad things are. They're only going to say he's either not playing or he is. So they'll give us a guide on a Tuesday, but come sort of Thursday when they're deciding whether to put him on a plane or not, or put him in the Neefle or not, then they'll soon let us know, won't they?
Yeah, they will. All right, well, let's move on to the match reports from the games on the weekend. So, in the Academy NAB League, we had our under-18 Suns go down to Melbourne and take on the Eastern Rangers. Unfortunately, the Eastern Rangers got the better of the Suns and walked away with a 59-point win. What are your thoughts on this game, Tom? Who stood out?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it was on at pretty much the same time as the AFL. So I didn't watch it. I would normally watch it because I quite enjoy watching the Academy team. They're good value. And it's really great to sort of see, a few of the players who could very well be Suns by the end of the year, seen on the senior list or the rookie list. So all I'll say is that I thought the app was broken because it said the score was like 9-2 and for a long, long time. So it was a dour struggle and neither team could hit the scoreboard for a very long time. Something happened at halftime because the Eastern Rangers team just came out in the second half and kicked a proper footy score, and the Suns couldn't go with them. I think it's basically there's quite a number of under 17s players. They've got the priority on having the best potential team, and they really want to put that footy, this experience, give that experience to these players. And with a 16-year-old up against a 19-year-old, it's, the result that happened. But I didn't see it, so I can't say any more. What I will say is they're playing this week in the final game of the NAB League Academy Series, and the game will be at South Pine in Brisbane. So I don't know how many listeners are willing to get on their bikes and head along to that, because it's about 100 k's away, but not for me. So I'm thinking of going, but yeah, I'll just have to. There's quite a lot on this at this stage, but they're playing against the Greater Western Victoria, and they are sort of an okay team in a really strong league. So they're not finishing bottom and they're not going to finish top. So we probably go quite well against them.
Yeah. Well, to round out the academy talk, the best on ground for the Suns in that game was young Connor Bedarick. So he's looking quite juicy as a draft potential for the Suns. He had 24 disposals and 12 tackles. So good effort by Connor, and looks very likely, if he continues this form, to be in Suns colours again next year in the AFL. Moving on to the NEAFL, again it wasn't a great result. Brisbane defeated the Gold Coast Suns by 97 points, 159 to 62. Now, not a great result. The Suns only kicked, I think it was 7 or 8 goals, and 6 of those goals came from Ben King and Sam Day with 3 apiece.
Sammy Day played the first half at full forward and kicked a couple of those goals from beyond the paint, so that's good signs for Sammy. Then he went back because if they were to have any chance of winning the game, they needed to stop the Lions from getting those marks inside 50. And he's a great defender. There's no question about that. But that's sort of that was sort of a panic stations at that stage. And then by then there were 2 guys on the bench. So there was it wasn't, they weren't a terrible team, but Brisbane had 18 AFL listed players, and the other 5 players were under 19s academy players. So they were playing a senior team. Suns, no, we were playing a couple of guys from Southport reserve grade and a couple of rejects from the academy team. So, and of course we had Richatelli was a laid out, Shear and Crossley got injured. So yeah. Well, what do you say?
Yeah,
it wasn't pretty, was it?
No, it wasn't. The only standout player would have been Aaron Young. He had 40 disposals, 9 marks and 9 tackles. So those sort of figures shows the amount of effort and passion, determination, grunt, I guess you call it, to get involved in the game and make something happen. Burgess also had 16 tackles, 16 possessions and 3 marks. So good signs from Burgess. I'm not sure whether he was playing off half back or was he down forward, Tom?
Again, he was the one who he and King were the ones who switched with Day.
Right.
So there's a bit of moving around there. I mean, they've got to find this because sometimes they've got too many talls down back, and so the opposition can just sort of run around them or go out in the lead or whatnot.
He didn't have any goals, so those 16 possessions must have mainly been accumulated in the back line, because it looks like the ball certainly spent a lot of time in the Brisbane back line. All right, well, before we jump into discussions on the AFL result, I just want to remind our listeners we are live. If you are listening to us live, feel free to jump into the chat and say hi, give us a bit of a chat, and let us know what your opinions are on the AFL result as we start to talk about it. And if we have time, we'll get to any questions at the end of the episode. All right, so Tom, let's jump into the Anzac Day clash against Brisbane. Brisbane Lions defeated the Gold Coast Suns by 49 points, 111 to 62. Sexton, Wright and Corbett each kicked 2 goals, and you could say it was a challenge.
Challenge accepted.
Not accepted. Because that was a woeful result. And I've got a bit of a rant. Actually, let's get it out the way now. Let's go on my little rap.
Come on, Shane.
We're calling this Shane Smash. So a bit like Hulk from the Avengers. I'm just going to smash it around. All right, so there were several things that just really annoyed me watching this game. The first was players were overthinking. Several times you saw different players have the opportunity to get a handball or a kick out to a player wide all by themselves, but they take the second option and try to go in line, try to be too cute, too fancy, and several times that resulted in a turnover and a goal. Now, most of the time this was happening in our backline, in our defence. And you know why? Because we had 5 tackles between 10 players. That's right. 5 tackles between 10 players. And those 10 players, 6 of them were defenders, 4 of them were forwards. No wonder we've got no defensive pressure, no forward pressure. So the ball was coming out of our forward line by the Brisbane defenders with too much ease, too much fluidity, and they were just able to hit their targets. And then again, there was our defenders weren't tackling, weren't applying the pressure to the Brisbane forwards, allowing them to get easier shots at goal. That's just not good enough. Now, this moves into the next part. We were out-muscled off the ball way too easily. And not just being out-muscled by our opponent, but the way they went about it. It just didn't seem like there was any heart. There was no anger, no soul, no grunt. For an Anzac Day clash, not exactly Anzac Day, I'm aware of that, Anzac weekend, there was no... what's the word? Teamwork. There was no fighting for your mates. You know, Bose got dragged down off the ball in the first 5 minutes of that quarter by Lachie Neale and ended up going off the ground because he was just a bit winded or concussed. It didn't look good, and Bose was not himself for the rest of the game, despite coming back on. Not one Suns player went to remonstrate. I didn't see a single Suns player get up there and then threaten Lachie Neale physically, push him around a bit and shake him up. Instead,
But Shane, it was a free kick. So the Suns were playing on. They got a free kick for it, and the Suns were playing on. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't have at the very least, reacted. But I reckon their team orders would be, don't get distracted by that kind of stuff early in the game, because it was like 2 minutes into the game.
Well, that's what needs to happen in a Q clash. When you're being out-muscled off the ball, the players need to get in there, get around each other, and fight. They need to put their opponent off, and that's what the Q clash lacked this week. It was that spice. It was the Gold Coast Suns players standing up for themselves. Instead, they were just pushed around like by the schoolyard bully. All right, and then to top it off, no, that's it. I'm done. I've had my rant. So
no, you make a lot of fair points there. It wasn't. I think Stuart Dew would probably say they didn't show a lot of care for each other. And when he used to start saying that kind of thing last year, I was sort of wondering, what's he talking about here? Like they didn't care for one another, But it's caring for one another is laying the shepherds, laying the tackles, putting opposition players on the ground so they can't back up. It's they all sort of ran in for Josh Corbett's first goal. That was nice to see, and Josh Corbett was a shining light. I thought, you would have liked to see him with a bit more of the ball, or maybe apply a bit more of defensive pressure up forward. But he'll get there. He had his first game, and he'll definitely be in the side for weeks to come. But yeah, you're right. There was just something off. I mean, Bosey, he got bloody slung into the ground. It went to the match review panel, and Michael Christian obviously doesn't want to upset the Brownlow betting ring. So he's sort of let him off the hook. But yeah, we get a free kick, and one of our best players gets pretty. He was pretty shaken. I watched him come off the field. He was shattered. And he went back on, but yeah, he wasn't himself.
Well, I think the match review panel said it was insufficient force to warrant a suspension or something like that. And that's utter crap, because Bose was off the ground because of it. So if that's insufficient force, I don't know what is. I guarantee if Bose had been off the ground for the rest of the day with a concussion, it would have been a one-match suspension minimum. Yeah,
and Bose played the second least amount of minutes of anyone, and he's normally plays a lot more than that. Anyway, I won't harp on him, because he's been one of our best players this year, and then he has a bit of a dirty game because he's basically been slung by his arm head first into the ground, and the intention was to concuss him. And other player, if he had been concussed, yeah, that's a suspension. But it's the same act. You know what I mean? Like, just because he didn't pull it off, his intention was there. So yeah, match review panels got to be, they got to shake that up.
All right. Well, I've had my smash. If there's nothing else you want to run over with the outmuscling or the poor pressure,
I've got one thing I want to say in defence of. I've seen a lot of social media stuff about Peter Wright, and look, he's not Tom Lynch because he's younger and he's not had 8 seasons to get to a level where he can kick bags of 5 or 6 regularity. But he chopped out in the ruck for about 25% of the game. He was up against 2 very good ruckmen who was basically better than him because they're full-time ruckmen. But he still manfully went in there and made a contest for it. And then he had to go running back up to be the lone tall forward because Josh Corbett is 190 centimetres. He's tallish, medium tall maybe. But he plays tall because he can mark and he can kick. But he's not there, screening Peter Wright in the duels. So he's getting double teamed all day. But look, the guy had 14 possessions, 85.7% defensive efficiency, 7 marks, and a lot of those marks were down the wing or even on the halfback flank. He covered so much ground. He had 7 1-percenters. The only guys who had more were Sam Collins and Jack Hompsch, which you'd expect from key position defenders. I've got him on my vote, so I gave him a vote. He really impressed me. Yeah, okay, he missed a couple of shots at goal, or 1 shot at goal. I think another one fell short. But he took the mark to have the shot, and he kicked a couple of goals. I don't see where it comes from, Shane. I really don't. I'm not watching a different game. People don't like the way that he gets pushed out of ruck contests, but he's standing under the ball and it's being kicked to him, and then 2 other big blokes come along and push him out. Like that's all it is.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's not doing him any favours the way the ball comes into that forward line. That's still something they need to work on.
Good time.
Yeah, his goals are pretty much all coming from leads which take him just outside the 50-metre range. So he's usually kicking his goals from about 45, 50 out, maybe even a bit more. Of course, he's going to miss a few from there.
Yeah, but he gets them from there, so that's the main thing.
Those marks that he's taken there are the ones when he's on the lead and he's not having to enter into a wrestle with the opposition. I think that works in his favour because the way the ball comes in long, it certainly doesn't help.
No, and high.
Yeah,
he can catch him up high, but
and he does more.
With someone the same size as him, he's going to lose, and that's what it was.
He also does more than a typical full forward does, considering the amount of time he spends in the ruck. I don't think that's the right move for the Suns. I think they need to give Wright a bit of time as a pure forward with no chopping out in the ruck, and we'll discuss that later with team selection.
Yes, because we have a solution, I think, and I think a lot of people agree with us.
So, I mean, I've had a bit of a smash now. So, do you have any positives to bring in as part of Tom's take?
Yeah, I do, and that is, well, the last thing I'll say on Peter Wright is that Eric Hipwood is his equivalent in the Lions, and in a winning team, Eric Hipwood had 50% of the production of Peter Wright. And there's no one on the Lions forum saying Hipwood needs to go to the knee full and that Hipwood had a terrible game. So I'm a bit fed up with the anti Peter Wright because he's just one of our best players, and players end up hearing about the social media stuff. Just support our players who are trying their best, and let's do something for them. The other thing I will say is make this point. The Lions played Easter Thursday, and then we played Easter Sunday. So it's a 3-day difference, and scheduling does this, but they didn't have to travel for 2 weeks. And when they did travel to play us, that came down the highway, we had to go all the way to Adelaide and play basically with 3 days less and the travel time. So there's a couple of things in that. The corollary of that is that we now travel to the West Coast and they had to travel and they played a day after us, so we get a small advantage there, I guess. So that's how it all balances out, and I don't think there'll be any complaints about any of the rest of our fixturing because I've had a pretty close look at it over the off-season and it all seems to be pretty standard. But it has to be said the Lions had a tremendous advantage. From what Chris Fagan said in his post-match was that he and the other coaches and the players had several meetings. They watched a lot of tape of the Suns, and they decided to take the game up to the Suns in the Suns' style of competitive football, and their matchups were carefully considered, and they beat us fair and square.
Yeah, I mean, there was a clear target on players like Bose and Fiorini from the start of the match to physically rough them up a bit. And, they succeeded with Bose. Fiorini got off the chain and was still effective. Yeah. Probably not as efficient with his disposal use. But
no, but he's a lefty, right? So he's still fooling opponents because they sort of have a half a step to go to his right-hand side, and he just jinks around him and pops a kick into the forward 50 or whatever. He had 5 inside 50s for Fiorini and kicked and he kicked a couple behinds, didn't he? And they were pretty much consecutive. But he did have a goal assist. Look, he was one of the best actually. But yeah, he has that little advantage. Ainsworth's the other one who the Lions absolutely clobbered in back play. And, Ben's left, on the ground, sort of clutching his head. I was surprised that incident didn't get seen, but,
All right, well, before we move on to the positives, let's just start the positives off by talking about our best players, our best on ground. My 3-2-1 goes to 3 votes Fiorini. I thought he was a standout for the Suns, got a lot of disposals, penetrated inside 50, really set us up when we were looking in trouble. I gave 2 votes to Tuke Miller, primarily for his pressure acts in a game where I thought we lacked a lot of pressure. He had 26 pressure acts, which was the most for the side, as well as getting 22 disposals, 5 marks, 5 tackles, and a goal. I thought that was a pretty standout performance as well. And then a controversial one for the 1 vote, I gave it to Piers Hanley. He made a couple of errors and had 19 disposals, but he had 94% disposal efficiency. So that was by far the highest for the Suns.
That's right. And at the game, it did feel like, you had 4 clangers, right? But it did feel like Hanley was ever present. You have to sort of go, okay, this is a game where we've got Charlie Cameron, dangerous small forward. We've got to limit him. What do? We put Harbs on him. Harbs probably put his hand up for that. And that meant that Hanley and Joyce had to step up, and they did. I probably would have given a vote to Jesse Joyce if he hadn't have had a couple of horrible clangers. There was a moment in the game. I have to share the moment to lift the spirits a little bit of the podcast. Jesse's done that horrible. It was great play. He marked the ball and he played on, and then he kicked it straight to a Lions player, and then anyway, won't relive the moment. And he comes off and he walks straight past me, and behind me I hear this little old lady go, "You think about what you've done." And everyone, it was just a lighter moment where everyone sort of went from, staring at Jesse Joyce going, "What have you done, mate?" And then everyone had a bit of a giggle and thought, well, he's a kid. He'll learn from it. I'm sure his teammates have bloody bagged him out of training, and he's not going to live it down until he can put in another performance. But the point is, he's been asked by the coach, put a bit more effort in and win a bit more of the ball. Do your defensive job, but get out there and get a few more rebound 50s and maybe even some inside 50s. Run the ball because you can. And he's taken a lot of risks and he's stuffed it up a few times. So encouragement award for Jesse Joyce. Totally agree with you about the 3 points for Braden Fiorini. He was just terrific. What did he have clearance-wise? The stoppages is where he's most effective, and he had 7 clearances in total, which last year, if you remember, we were struggling to get players get any clearances at all. We were getting belted, and he helped us. Not just him, but I find with Brodie in the team, we're getting a lot more clearances as well. But anyway, I'll give my votes. Fiorini, the 3 votes, clear cut. No, there was no doubt there. And the second person is Ben Ainsworth, and probably the distinction for him was that he's playing sort of as a forward, but also in the midfield, but he's sort of more of as a winger, and I think that's where he should live. I wasn't convinced previously, but after seeing some of his wing play, we could really do with him in getting into the guts of things when he needs to, and then being there as that last link and getting an inside 50, because he was delivering quality ball, and he had 2 goal assists. And the 1 point, as I said, Peter Wright, for all the reasons given, because without him, we would have been beaten by 100 points.
Yep. All right, well, I think we're both in agreement as to the what a performance moment of the week.
Lockie Weller, what a performance!
It actually goes to Corbett. His kicking his first goal in the AFL was quite a scene, and then following it up later on, he was scratching along the ground, missed a mark, crawling along the ground, and had the foresight to just tap it out in front to Lukosius, who was running past, and Lukosius kicked the goal. So it was just
the crowd just went crazy, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I was listening to the commentary on the radio, so Triple M commentary, and they were saying it was Jack Martin that knocked it out. So, as per usual, they don't know who our players are, but it was good to see Josh Corbett get in there. He didn't have a huge game, but kicking 2 goals on debut, that's a good result, and hopefully we expect the same or more from him in future games.
Yeah, it was those a couple of times where he just showed the passion and grit to get there. He didn't have his usual 10 marks. He took 3, but he did go up for a lot of marks and brought the ball to ground. I always look at the goal assist column, and in this game, actually, there are quite a number of goal assists, and that's good to see, because it means we are sort of hitting inside 50 targets. Not nearly as many as we need to be hitting, but he got given a goal assist for that effort. I predicted that he'd get 3 goals on debut, and he got 2 goals and a goal assist, so it was pretty close. But I loved him. He's just what we need to balance out that forward line in anticipation of Isaac Rankin coming in. Corbett's place is safe.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's move on to Tom's take. We'll get you to give us some positivity, Tom, about why you think the Suns are in with a chance coming up against West Coast in Perth this week.
Yeah, well, look, the West Coast Eagles are they don't have quite as many injuries as us. However, from their grand final team, they've got quite a number of players out, and they already had Nick Naitanui out. So they'll be missing Jack Redden, Willie Rioli, Tom Barrass, and previously their sort of backup guy is Jake Waterman, and he might be out as well. Jack Darling's not in very good form. Josh Kennedy's the one to look out for, but he sort of seems like he's sort of, he's probably into his last years. He might even finish up this year, and he's a bit fragile, isn't he? So I look. I'm not going to predict that we're going to go over there and win, but I am going to predict that this is a chance that it's not 100% locked away. There's a very good chance that we go over there, rediscover our best form, and with this disappointing effort, put it behind us. Probably make a few changes to the team, which isn't exactly positive, but it is positive for the players who've been putting in a big pre-season and not getting into the team initially, and then the team having success, and so they couldn't crack into the winning team, and now the team's had a couple of losses, reevaluate a couple of places, and that in itself will be a sort of a positive mood. We haven't had too many injuries, so that's another positive thing to be. You know, the injuries were in the NEAFL and not exactly players who are going to crack it in this week anyway. But yeah, the one final thing that I will say about the West Coast is that we have a number of West Coast players who are from over there, and I think they probably felt it pretty keenly last year when we went over there and for the 2 weeks in a row and didn't have a very good couple of games. So I think they'll have something to prove. The West Aussies, Swallow and Jack Martin. We think maybe Will Powell comes back into the team. Have we left any West Aussies out who are up for selection?
You're putting me on the spot here. They're the ones that come to mind.
Yeah. But Archie, of course, but he's not going to be playing, so.
Yeah, look, on the spot, no one else comes to mind. Most of them are all South Australians, a couple of Victorians and Queenslanders thrown in there.
That's it. Yeah, I think we've even got a New South Welshman or two.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
All over.
So, not position changes. Ins and outs for the side to play West Coast. Now, I agree with you. I think we do have a shot to at least be competitive. West Coast are 18th in the competition for contested ball and hard ball gets, and that was something we were very successful doing, bringing that hard ball and that contested game in the first 4 weeks of the competition. The last 2 weeks, there's sort of disappeared from that. Now, there's been a lot of media talk. We've had Ainsworth and Fiorini in articles lately come out saying they're aware they need to bring back that contested pressure, that effort that they had in the first 4 weeks. So if they bring that game in, we've got every shot in the world to upset West Coast over there. I think it is time, though, for a little bit of a change. The Optus Stadium Oval is renowned for having a hard surface. I certainly felt like we suffered the effects of that in that double-header game there last year. So I would err on the side of caution and give blokes like Lukosius and Ballard a break. And the other two blokes I'm looking at maybe not having an impact next week would be George Holland-Smith and Murdoch. But those two I'm a little more flexible on. I think the senior bodies is something we need at the club, especially coming up against West Coast. So in the ins I've got, it would be Day, Miles, Young and Powell. Powell slots into a nice spot in the wing, giving us a bit of pace. Also being from WA, he's probably going to be making the flight over there anyway. I think Young and Miles are too important to the side for that mature senior bodies. Playing a bit of midfield time is also a bit of time forward. And then Day's that flexible player that can go back or go forward and fill the space that Lukosius and Ballard can play.
Well, he's helped for Peter Wright too, isn't he? So you've got the two big fellas up in the forward 50, and then Wright has to go and chop in. Normally has to go and chop out in the ruck. Well, maybe Day can do the chopping out because we don't. When Witsy has to go off for a spell, and sometimes it comes about midway through the first quarter, sometimes a bit later, sometimes a bit earlier, but it's really disruptive for Peter Wright to suddenly, because he starts the game leading for balls and sometimes takes a couple of marks and has a couple of shots at goal or whatever. Can't get a free kick for love or money, by the way. But anyway, he had 5 free kicks in the St Kilda game. End up with a few goals. Anyway, the Day selection means that he can go chop out of the ruck and leave Peter Wright to be doing that game that he does, which is leading up the flanks, going up the wing, taking 7 or 8 marks, and just concentrating on getting that part of his game and being where he needs to be for our players to link up with him and getting a bit better at disposal. But not that his efficiency is so bad, but just sometimes it takes a bit of time. So Day can do the defence, as you said. He can do the chopping out, but he's also another tall option in the forward line, which I can't really believe that we're going with a tall line. I guess we've got height with Lukosius, but we don't necessarily have that presence that a key position player has. Lukosius had 6 possessions. He had a goal and a goal assist, and other than that, he had 1 other effective possession. So it's not enough. Corbett playing his first game also had the same number of possessions, but his disposal efficiency was better. He kicked 2 goals and had a goal assist. He did a little bit more around the ground as well. So took a few more marks and whatnot. So Corbett's the one who stays. Don't know about Murdoch. I've been really liking him, and I think he just had a bad day. I think he and Holland Smith didn't really know what to be doing when the Suns are in this position of being sort of behind and trying to mount a comeback, but not quite kind of really getting any momentum. And they stick out, right? Because the other guys all play together, and they're still doing the right things. You still had Joyce coming off halfback, and still had Hanley coming out of defensive 50, and you still had Alex Sexton trying to belt goals from everywhere and stuff. But yeah, it's the guys who haven't been there who just couldn't assert themselves. So yeah, I will mention one other player, Shane. Jacob Heron wouldn't look too bad in a Suns jersey against the Eagles. Bit of pace, versatility. He's a great little player. So he's been the senior emergency as well, so it'd be a good reward for effort. But I guess if he gets picked, then Will Powell would probably be sitting out.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough call. There's a lot of players that we think are due in, and there's also a lot of players that might be due a rest. Unfortunately, we're not in the club. We don't know how all these players are feeling, but yeah, from an outside point of view, I think some changes need to be played more strategically, give some players a rest, even though they're probably fine to play. We've got a question come in from Rod Walsh asking about George Holland-Smith and what you think his best position is.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced that the wing was his position. Not that he played on the wing a whole lot, but when he was there, he was in no man's land. Inside. He's a better player inside. But, yeah, he was playing all over the place on the weekend, and it didn't suit him wherever he went.
Okay. And the other question, Rod's having a double dip here. He's asked, who else can play on the dangerous small forwards? Because Harbrow has had an ordinary couple of weeks when he's accountable. Yeah, it's a thing. Although those couple of weeks have been 2 of the best small forwards in the game, also Indigenous players. So Harb's put his hand up and said, I want this is my job. I don't think Joyce or Hanley disgraced themselves. They certainly acquitted themselves quite well, really. But yeah, you'd rather see Harbs out there getting 25 possessions, wouldn't you? Yeah. So I think Joyce is our best lockdown small defender, but he doesn't have the pace, I think, to keep up with someone like a Betts or a Cameron.
Who's that?
Joyce.
His little brother is a bit faster, so in a couple of years maybe he'll be the option. Look, I don't know. I sometimes think that we probably need to go a little bit bigger in our back line. So, taking Ballard out, maybe putting someone else in who's got a bit more size could be the answer. But yeah, I don't have any answers for Rod at this point, because I really think that Hanley, Joyce and Harbrow are our best 3 smaller defenders.
Sometimes you just got to work with what you got. All right, Well, we don't have much longer left to go. So if you've got any other closing statements,
I've got one thing. Alex Davies, our under-17s champion, has made it into the Australian under-17s team. We're playing against New Zealand. I don't even know what that means, but I guess it's an Anzac thing, and we don't have any other team that's an international team that we can play. We'll probably beat him by 1,000 points, but he's the Suns representative in that team. Congratulations to Alex Davies, champion.
Right. Well, Congratulations. All right, it's time to head off. Go Suns!
Go Suns!